For my experiment, I will be teaching my horse Echo to come to me when I whistle a certain tune that I had previously picked out. I'll be using shaping techniques to train this behavior, and I will be leveling up gradually to get to the desired behavior, which is her coming to me when I whistle the tune. She isn't super food motivated, so for her positive reinforcement, I will be using pats and scratches and words of praise, as well as some treats that she likes, just to keep her interested. I will also be changing the scenery that we practice in and any distractions that may be there, whether it be more horses or more people or more sounds happening. And I'll also be leveling down if need be, if she is lacking confidence and focus, to get her back on track.
So this is the first level, where I stand about 5 feet away from her in the round pen. It's a very small arena for me to work in. There were a lot of distractions that day, but I was very impressed with how she did. With the first level, I just want her to focus on me when I whistle and stand still. That's all I'm asking for, and she did extremely well with it. She's a very, very smart horse, and she learns extremely quickly, so I ended up leveling up faster than I thought I would. So now I'm leveling up by walking further away and asking her to come towards me, which she surprisingly does extremely well. And she continues to focus on me, and for that I gave her extra praise, a lot of positive reinforcement and treats, a lot of words of praise, and she really appreciated that. It was very hard for her to keep focus on me. I think it was feed time around the time that I was practicing this, so it turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought on that day, even though we were in a small round pen. There are also people riding in the outdoor arena outside of us, so that was also a little bit of a challenge, but she did much better than I thought that she would. The only thing that I had a little bit of a problem with, and I continue to have a problem with, was that her following me. See right here, she tried to follow me, so I shooed her away, and I tried to act a little boring. It's very hard for her to not come to me because I have a lot of treats for her, and I give her praise. So, I mean, naturally anybody would want to come to a person who has a lot of praise for them. So there she didn't stand as close to me as I wanted her to. She still paid attention to me, which I really appreciated. So I whistled again, and she did exactly what I wanted, which was her to take a step forward and to focus on me. So I gave her a lot of praise for that one. She was extremely good. She's a very quick learner, so we ended up leveling up and going down quite a bit in the days and weeks that we worked on this. She does tend to get a little distracted and nervous when there are other horses and people nearby, so I had to level down a couple of times to get her to focus, and then we leveled up. Again, we had that problem many times where she wanted to follow me, which is not a bad thing. She was interested in me, but my focus for this project is her just coming when I call. So there she did take a little bit longer to come to me. There was a tractor right outside our round pen. But I'm not really worried about that. That's up for the last levels. Right now, all I care about is her coming to me eventually when I whistle. Good girl, very good girl. I was very pleased with how she did that day. Lots and lots of praise. So a few days later, I ended up practicing in the indoor since the round pen was being used, and I thought it would be a good time to practice in different places with different distractions. So now I'm starting at the first level, which is just her looking at me and paying attention to me when I whistle. Just to keep her focus on me and to help her confidence. She did a little step there, but I was very proud of her. Very good start to the day. So now I'm leveling up to the second level, where I would like her to come to me. She did very well with this. Sometimes it's really hard for her to distinguish when I want her to just look at me and when I want her to come to me. I was trying to relay the information to her that whenever I want her to come to me, I'm back farther. So whenever I step further back than 5 feet from her, I would like her to come to me, which was a little confusing for her sometimes, but I tried to keep it as consistent as possible, and she got it. I was very happy with how quickly she learned. A little distracted. There were some things going on outside the arena, but all in all, I was very proud of her. It's like I don't really care what she gets distracted with or how long it takes for her to come to me. As long as she comes to me right now with what I'm asking, that's really all I care about. As long as she focuses on me at some point after I whistle. When I level up farther, I would like her to come to me as quickly as she can when I whistle. But right now we're practicing on just the first and second level. She was very good with the longer distances. She doesn't really like the back end of that arena. She doesn't like when she gets close to it and it makes some noise. It's a thin wall, so she's not very fond of it. So we're working on getting her closer and closer to that end of the arena. So here she did try to follow me a little bit. So I changed my direction, and she wasn't super interested afterwards, so I continued to go to my spot. I try not to whistle that often because I would like the whistle to mean something, and I don't want to overuse it. So after I gave her a couple second break, and I whistled again, she seemed to connect the dots and figure out what I wanted her to do. Sometimes you can really see the cogs in her brain moving and her trying to figure things out, which is really cool. See right there, she's thinking about it. And sometimes it'll take them a few seconds, so I'm not super interested in having her come super quickly. As long as she comes to me, I'm totally fine with it. And each time she seems to get quicker and quicker at responding to it, even though she can get a little nervous and a little distracted, especially with the area that we're in.
Good girl.
It's just another trick that I taught her, a kiss for a treat. And she's a very smart horse, so she likes to learn all the tricks she can.
Good girl.
So it's nice as a little break to have her do something else that's interesting. So a few days later, I decided to practice with her again and see where we were. It was a bit chilly, so she had a harder time figuring out what I wanted to do since she was a little bit fresh, not really willing to participate, but we still went with it, and we ended up having a pretty good session. We started off a bit slow, which is totally fine. I was just happy that she came to me. So I gave her a lot of praise that day just to keep her confidence and focus on me. My goal for that day was to level up to level 3, which was having her react a little bit faster and coming to me a little bit quicker whenever I whistle. But then again, you never really know what your horse is going to be like every day, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. It took a bit of time for her to really want to interact with me that day. She was a bit slow to reacting, but that was totally fine. I still gave her lots of praise whenever she did do what I asked. So this is more of the corner where she doesn't like and gets a little bit more nervous. So I'm trying to work more towards getting her to work more willingly in the scarier part of the arena for her. And she did extremely well, and I was very happy with her for not hesitating and coming to me in the scarier corner. So here she got a little spooked by a noise outside of the arena. So after she trotted around, I called her in with the whistle. It took her a little bit to realize what I wanted her to do. She was a bit nervous. I was very, very proud of her for continuing to focus even though she was a little nervous after her little spooking incident, which is totally fine. It happens to every horse. Again, it was a little chilly that day. She was a little fresh, and she was a little more likely to spook at things and noises outside of the arena. So after she did very well with coming back to me, I went down to the side of the arena she doesn't like, and I asked her a more challenging question, which was to come to me to the scarier side of the arena, which was a further distance than I had asked before that day. See there, she was a little bit hesitant. She was looking at the corner that she had spooked at previously. But she still came to me and still focused on me. I was extremely proud of her, so I gave her a ton of praise. So here she stopped a little bit further away from me than I'd like, so I asked her for one more step, and she happily obliged. So I gave her a ton of pets and treats. She really seemed to like it, especially in this area that she was scared of the most. So we ended up leveling up to the 3rd level. She responded extremely quickly when she was walking around, but the only thing is that she stopped farther away from me than I had wanted. But that's totally fine. I kept working with it. Overall, I was very happy and very excited with how well she did that day despite her anxiety. So a few days later, I decided to give her a bit of a challenge and practice in an empty paddock that we had at the barn. It was very distracting that day. The neighbor was mowing her lawn next to us. It was very loud. There's also grass to graze on that distracted her quite a bit. And a couple of my friends were riding their gaited horses around the street next to us. So she was pretty distracted, but overall she did very well. And we got some good practicing out of that. So the start, she was very attentive, wanted to be near me, which I really appreciated. I had to move my spot where I put my camera a couple of times because the pasture was pretty big and it was hard to get a full view of the paddock. She was pretty distracted. My friend's horses were on the road next to us. She did get a little spooked by them at first, but I really appreciated how willing she was to try and come to me even though she was a little nervous. I was very proud of her. Very proud of her then. She wanted to walk away, but even when I whistled, she came back to me and was willing to focus on me. I really appreciated that in her. It's a little harder to focus right now. It was really hard to hear myself whistle with the lawnmower, but eventually she did come to me. I think putting her out in the paddock was a really good challenge for both of us, even though she did get distracted by the grass and all the people walking by. And it was very good practice for both of us. A couple of times I had to hold the camera myself.
Good mare.
She was very, very good.
Good girl. Oh.
I had to stay a little bit closer to her than I wanted to. I wanted to practice some long distance whistles. But she seemed to be much more distracted today than any of the other days because of the place that I put her in. So I ended up staying at a closer range, and she was able to pay more attention.
Good girl. I know. Life is hard. Life is hard. Hey.
So I was just being patient and waiting for her to come. I had to go down a few levels and start over a couple of times when she got nervous and distracted, just to boost her confidence a little bit and keep her focused. It was still very challenging that day. A lot of stuff going on and a completely new and bigger area to practice in. So after everything settled down and she was able to pay more attention to me, we really had some good practice runs. I was very proud of her and gave her a whole bunch of praise. Even though it was a bit frustrating that day to constantly try to keep her focus on me, I tried to be as patient as possible and just give her room to breathe so she can think. There's an old saying from Monty Roberts that if you act like you've got only 15 minutes, it'll take all day. But if you act like you've got all day, it'll only take you 15 minutes. So I try to be as patient and forgiving as possible, especially with teaching her new things like this. My goal for that day was to possibly be able to perfect all the levels since we'd worked so hard for a couple of weeks now. But your goals aren't really always going to go according to plan. So it didn't really work out that day, but overall I was so happy with how things ended, and we really made a lot of progress. It was a very challenging spot to practice our distance calls that day, especially with all the noise. So after she was very good in that corner of the paddock, coming back to me, I tried to get her out to the bigger part of the paddock and do some more distance calls. She was very distracted and she got a little spooked, but I eventually got her to come back to me and just be beside me. And she ended up doing a big sigh and came to me and really paid attention. I was very, very happy with how we ended things.